Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of The Flash, as well as the season premiere of Legends of Tomorrow. Like always, if I'm talking about something that you want to listen to, you can always look in the description down below. I include the time when I start talking about each of the respective shows. So for example, if you don't want to hear what I had to say about the season premiere of The Flash, you could skip to what I had to say about the season premiere of Legends of Tomorrow. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is the season premiere of The Flash. A fantastic premiere. I love that they did such a good job. Like, I mean, obviously it's been 6 months, which I guess like all across the board it's been 6 months for everyone because it's been like 6 months for Legends. But obviously I'll get the Legends when I get the Legends. But nevertheless, it's just like, it's so interesting because you have Iris kind of leading the team because Caitlin's not there, Barry's not there. It turns out Julian went back to London afterwards because I guess like one of his main reasons to being on the team and everything was Caitlin. Now she's going, his reason for staying is kind of going too. So, but the fact of the matter is she's kind of like, Iris is kind of like, she's kind of holding the whole thing together now that Barry's gone. The fact of the matter is she kind of coordinating the team. Is like, oh, do this, do that, do this and that. I never knew her, the meta they went after this episode, Peekaboo. I didn't know that was her name. Haven't seen her for a while. Did she pop up at all? Like, when was the last time she popped up? It's been a while. But I love that whole, look of just her popping up all over the place and Wally chasing after her up all the place. It's like, oh, it's been such a long time. It's like, it's so good. It's so good. And then Cisco, teleporting and just like all three of them, along with Joe working together and just be like, yo, team Flash did it. I mean, team Kid Flash did it. It's like, nah, man, that's too much. That's too wordy and stuff like that. But, you just see them kind of having a little fun. It's their way of trying to, it's like, hey, we got this teamwork on lock. It's still a little iffy, but I mean, they get the job done. But sadly, it's like, you even hear Iris brings up, it's like basically they only capture every 1 out of 3 metas just because it's too much for just one person to handle. I mean, even with them, because they're not really 100% gelled together. Like, I'm sure the fact of the matter is if Barry was there, the load would be a little light because it's like, oh, while I could take care of some things, Barry could. But it's like, they've got to handle this on their own. They're down a lot of people, so... And you even see Iris kind of taking things even more seriously. Like, she's not even like... She's like, okay, guys, cut out the fun. Let's take this a little more seriously. I said, okay, Wally, I got a training regimen ready for you. I need you to get started on that. It's going to take about 4 hours. It's like, wait, what? And it's like, she's very strict about it. And it's like... and I talked about this when I brought up the trailers, and it seems like that is truthfully like how the episode ran about. And I think it's such a cool aspect to add to Iris's character because it's like as we know with the season finale of season 3's finale, everything was okay. She had a life in front of her again, and she was going to be married to Barry, and it was all taken away from her. And now it's like she has to find a way to move on. She made a promise to Barry that she'd run, and the fact of the matter is she's been running, in those 6 months. And it's so interesting to see because it's so sad because it's like you can tell Iris is trying so hard because it's not just about keeping the team together, it's about keeping herself together. Because if she doesn't do this, she doesn't keep her promise to Barry, then it's just like it's almost kind of similar to Kara because Kara does fully became Supergirl because if she was Kara, she feels like she'd fall apart. And I think the same thing for Iris is like she keeps the team together, keep her busy and focused, then maybe she won't think about Barry as much. Maybe she kind of keeps herself together as well as everyone else. So. But obviously the entire time Cisco's been working on a way to get Barry back and everything, which is kind of interesting. Which I also thought was kind of cool on Cisco's part to be like, wait, like he's like, when everything was said and done, like when they didn't think they actually got Barry back, he was actually sad because he was like, I said that this was all about, the samurai and everything, which I'm going to get to him soon enough. But it's like, I said it was all about the samurai, but in all honesty, it's not. It's actually because I miss my best friend and I just wanted an excuse to get him back. And it's like, dude, because even he's like, Iris, why are you so against everything I'm doing? And it's like, you can tell from the beginning, it's like Iris just didn't want to have any hope because hope would hurt too much because it's like, what if she gets her hopes up and it doesn't work out, which it ultimately, at first they didn't know that it did work, but it's like, it would have shattered her. She might not have been able to recover. So she's like, no, stop wasting your time on this. Barry's gone. Because if she gave herself even a tiniest bit of hope, there was that. If that hope got snuffed out, what would she have left to hold on to? She probably, it's all for the sake of just keeping herself on steady ground, essentially, under these very rocky circumstances. So. I don't know, it's just a very powerful episode in that sense of like, just like, not even just like, I think they did a very good job in this episode of stepping back from just Barry, like, just, I think this is a good episode of like, hey, like, this is a chance to show you like our side characters, like characters who are main characters, but obviously Barry's the main focus. And in this, it's like they took the main stage and we get to see how they're feeling, how they're dealing with everything. Because Joe's dealing with it is like he lost a son, and it's like, you know, he's like, no, we don't know that Barry's gone forever. Don't talk like he is. But, you know, like I said, Iris, just, that was her way of dealing. And Joe, you know, him and Cecile are happy and everything, and it's all sweet, they're cute, and they're lovable, and they're together and everything. It's cute, but it still doesn't change the fact that things are kind of rough for him. And then Cisco, he ends up tracking down Caitlin in this episode. She's a bartender and everything. Seems like she's okay, and she decides to come back. Interestingly enough, she already knew about Barry, which is like, okay, if you knew, why didn't you come back? Which obviously the episode kind of already alludes to why she didn't come back. Which I might as well just break everything down right there. It's so interesting. I was wondering, I was like, okay, like, did she just dye her hair or something like that? Because last time we saw her, she had Killer Frost hair. But I was like, no. I was like, okay, so what's going to be the twist in this? And it's like, I thought she was going to activate her powers and still be Caitlyn. Like, she hadn't come. It doesn't seem like she's completely nullified. Because she danced around the question because, like, you know, Cisco's not trying to push her pride too much because I think he's afraid that if he does, like, he might, you know, she might leave again. So he's not about to let one of his other best friends go, like, especially during this whole Barry situation. So. But it seems like it's a situation where she kind of, like, it's almost like dual personalities coexisting, which it's kind of been a thing before now. Like, that's always kind of how it's been for Caitlyn after, you know, post, you know, Flashpoint. It's been like that for her. But it feels like it's even more so now, to the point, like, she blacks out and turns into the other, which is so fascinating. It's just like, she's like, not again. And it seems like she's hiding that from everyone, because I guess more so than anything, because everything she did is Killer Frost. Either she doesn't realize what's going on, which I think on some, she obviously does know, but it's probably a situation of she doesn't remember exactly what she does as Killer Frost. But, or is it a situation of she's not even Killer Frost anymore? Is she like Killer Frost plus? You know, the fact of the matter is there's Caitlyn, and then there's something in the other side of her which is even worse than Killer Frost. Maybe, you know, because the question is, why did it happen? Because the last time we saw, Caitlyn was kind of like, she's like, I'm not Caitlyn, I'm not Killer Frost, and now it seems like we're kind of getting that element of like, it's because she's coexisting as both, but eventually one will overtake the other, you know, because eventually it'll probably like shatter her psyche being split in two like that. So I don't know, it's just kind of interesting. I guess it's almost like a little reminiscent of, like, you know, Firestorm's whole situation. Obviously it is very different from Firestorm's situation, but kind of similar in certain regards. It's actually kind of interesting because this episode kind of spoils a little bit about Arrow, because it's like, Cisco's like, yeah, I got some help from Felicity and Curtis, which is like, I'm not too surprised that they live, but just, you know, obviously the way, because obviously there were previews that popped up while I was watching TV tonight, but I avoid looking at anything related to Arrow. I'm like, no, I'm gonna wait till Thursday when it airs for me to, like, find out where everything and everybody stands. There's also things that popped up in Legends that kind of got me questioning that too, but once again, Legends, I'll get to Legends soon enough. Way they did, basically using the speed cannon and using this device to basically, it's supposed to mimic Barry still being inside of the Speed Force, so like the Speed Force won't know that he's gone. Which is kind of interesting because on the fact that, like, I've always kind of described the Speed Force as like this omnipotent thing. Like, I mean, there's probably better definitions, but at least from my experience, that's how I look at it. And it seems like this thing kind of knows all and is all type of thing that exists beyond time, space, and all that. So it kind of, it's like, can you really trick it? Like, maybe it isn't all knowing, it isn't completely omnipotent to the point that it will notice something like that, as long as it has a signature being like, oh, Barry's here. Not unless it's okay because it needed Barry to be there because it knows something coming in the future that Barry needs to be even faster and better than, which immediately you can tell things are very different from Barry, because the moment, like, the freaking wormhole opened up, which I love how that, like, that scene went about. Just like that coffee lifting up into the air, like, very slowly like that, and just Barry dashing out of it, and it's like you could almost tell he couldn't slow down, and you can tell he's naked, which is like, well, it makes sense because he's going so fast that he literally burned off his clothes. But the fact of the matter is, he came back scattered because his brain isn't, like, he can't formulate words correctly. He's saying things, but they're just kind of out of context and not weird, which is like, oh, it's like yay and nay, because it's like, yeah, we have Barry back, but Barry isn't himself. Then there's a question of, like, will Barry always be like this? Is this just like a temporary thing that he'll bounce back from, or what? I mean, especially when Cisco tried to translate all those symbols, which were all over, that he was drawing all over the place. But it was, none of it was anything concrete, because one of the lines was like, this house is bitchin' or something like that, which is like, no, that's not what, so either they got the wrong translation thing, but the fact is it came out translated all, seems like it might be the right programming. It just, I don't know, maybe certain things just didn't quite line up. I don't know. Like, the fact of the matter is, Barry, and it's something interesting because even Caitlin kind of throws it out there. It's like, well, time works differently in the Speed Force. He's been in there for months, when in actuality, who knows how long he was actually in there, because time works differently. So he could have actually been in there for like 10,000 years for all we know. So what that does beg the question of like, how long was Barry really in there? Was it for that 6 months, or like, how did time work inside the Speed Force? And also, like, you know, was that information like he picked up himself? Like, because it's, Barry doesn't have, like, when it's all said and done, Barry doesn't have any memories of being inside the Speed Force. All he remembers is walking in with his mom and then like going to save Iris. You know, that's the only thing he remembers. So, which, man, oh man, seeing him not only like in the new suit, which obviously I should have figured as much that they'd be going that direction, considering the fact is that we got introduced to the alternate outfit in that alternate timeline last season, where Barry, you know, post Savitar killing Iris. So, but seeing him super fast, even while it's like, I never ran that fast, and you have Cisco being like, yeah, no one has, because there's certain aspects, you know, just certain things I've come across that have kind of talked about Barry inside of the Speed Force. So it seems like while he was inside, he ended up absorbing some of the Speed Force. So now he's like super fast. I think the episode itself is called Flash Reborn, because even he's like, yeah, I feel reborn. Which I'm wondering, is that supposed to be like referencing, this might be picking from like the Rebirth set of comic books when it comes to like the DC universe? I'm curious, is that, was that kind of supposed to be alluding to? Maybe. Once again, not a comic book person. Like, I know a lot of stuff I think is, in this sense, have all been pulled from the New 52, which it kind of makes sense because the New 52 is like post Flashpoint. But I think even stuff from the first 2 seasons prior to Flashpoint, I think still pulled from New 52 stuff. Maybe, I don't know. Once again, I just said it before and I'll say it again. I'm not that familiar with comic books, so could be completely talking out of, like, you know, I'm talking out of my ass there. So, but it's so awesome seeing him like dashing around that field and like in like one swift movement, getting Iris away from the samurai and then taking the samurai down. Which I was actually kind of surprised. Like, the moment like the samurai crashed, I was like, he's gonna be a robot, isn't he? It's like, yep, he's a robot, which is so cool. The thing I was gonna like bring up earlier, I meant to, about the samurai, is the fact is, it's pretty awesome that it's samurai, because if you don't know, like, one of my favorite episodes last season of Legends of Tomorrow was the one where they went back to feudal Japan, just because samurais are my thing. Ninjas too, so me and Rory kind of click on that. But nevertheless, it's just like, not only is he a samurai, he's a cool samurai with like tech that's got jets and stuff like that. Also those swords, dude, just like clanging them down like that, and it creates like a shockwave and everything. He took Wally down pretty easily too, which I guess, because I was wondering, like, how are you keeping up with a speedster? You seem like you'd be slow, but it's like, obviously, I guess if you're trained enough, but it's like, no, you're a robot, so most likely, and ultimately, this go back to the creator of this said robot, Samdroid is what I think Cisco ended up naming this thing. It's the Thinker, which obviously with a name like that, he's a very calculated person, so everything seems to be like planned out. So maybe he's able to program it to know exactly what ways Wally would move. Even I was like, oh, Wally will travel this fast in this direction to hit you here. You know, plan things out in well advance, because it took Wally down pretty easily. Which I'm kind of sad that Wally didn't get to wear the Flash suit for long. I mean, granted, Barry's got the new suit, so I was like, what is going to happen to the old suit? So, I mean, there's like literally a picture. I don't know if it was something fake that showed Wally in the Flash suit, but it was more like the helmet, the mask, I guess cowl of the suit was more like how it is for his Kid Flash outfit. Like, I don't know if that was something somebody had made or whether that's legit. That's something I randomly saw like when the trailers originally dropped from San Diego about like, well, I mean, all the DC shows, but all the San Diego Comic-Con trailers that dropped. So, but nevertheless, because it's something I brought up in season 3's finale of like, man, are we going to get a season without Barry? Will Barry even be in the show? I was like, because I was so certain, I was like, yeah, because I was like, no, what's going to happen is Wally's going to dress up as Barry and solve the situation. It's like, no, Barry came back the first episode. So, it would have been interesting, but I'm at the same time, I'm like, dude, I'm too hyped to really care. I was like, I don't care. Team I was literally about to call him Team Arrow. Sorry, Team Flash is back together at relatively full strength. I am curious to see whether they get anyone else. Because something else I had brought up, I was curious last season too. Was like, would Tracy stay on after the whole HR situation? And like I also brought up earlier, Julian being gone. So I'm curious, will there be any more people joining the team? I'm just curious to see where the story takes us this season, because obviously got this main antagonist, the Thinker, who it seems like everything might be connected to the point of like how, because the robot was like, welcome back, Flash. They knew specifically, the Thinker has some idea of knowing where Barry was. So maybe all this information Barry's got inside of his head is because maybe the Speed Force needed him to know it before he left. It's like all this information is there crammed inside of your head, but it's too much for you to process, hence why he was kind of scattered like that. So maybe this, like I said, maybe this has all been about like Barry. It seemed like it was a punishment or whatever, but maybe in actuality it was about Barry coming back stronger to face a new threat that was coming. Maybe. Because once again, I feel like the Speed Force would know the moment someone left, because things just, I don't know. Like I said, maybe we'll see that kind of coming up in the future, maybe not. So also kind of skipped over it, but the whole Caitlyn situation, like obviously I dived into the Killer Frost situation, but like obviously it seems like she was doing some very shady stuff, and it doesn't even seem like it's necessarily her as Killer Frost either. It does seem like as Caitlyn too, because it's like, she's like, yeah, I'm not working for you guys anymore, because a guy with a cloudy eye was like, no, you can't just walk away like that. So I'm like, I'm curious to see what that's all about. Like, what has Caitlyn been up to in these 6 months? Because whatever it is, it's the reason why she never came back. It's like, because, that plus the whole Killer Frost situation, but now those situations might be one and the same. Consider maybe it's like, she makes ends meet as a bartender, like, when they don't need Killer Frost, she's just there as a bartender and they need her nearby. Maybe she was strapped for cash. Maybe she just caught up with the wrong group, and maybe that agitated like that Killer Frost persona, and it just popped up on it. I don't know. Like, this is just me taking guesses. We will just kind of have to wait and see what the season has in store for us. Like I said, I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode. And now moving on to the season premiere of Legends of Tomorrow, a fantastic season premiere for Legends as well, because this episode completely took me by surprise. It subverted all my expectations, because immediately the episode's like, oh my God, this new world we created because of us meeting ourselves last season, to us trying to rectify the whole everything that went down in season 2 and like ending it the way it did. And it's like, oh, time is all screwed up. All of a sudden, Rip pops up. I'm like, wait, what? What a group known as the Time Bureau is like, yeah, we met like 15 minutes ago, but in all honesty, I've been working for like 5 years to fix all this time stuff that you've messed up. Oh, and also I want to tell you, like, the legends are no longer needed, so bye-bye. Which is like immediately in like the first literally 3 minutes of the show, they get fired. Which is so interesting considering the whole Rip situation, because it's like, he's like, well, as the one who created this team at first, I have to, I think it's only right that I'm the one who ends it. Which is so interesting considering the fact is of how this whole thing started. It started with Rick doing this for selfish reasons of wanting to save his family. Yes, it was all about stopping Vandal Savage, but still, he had his own selfish reasons. So it's not like you're kind of completely innocent and everything. Like, I guess arguably, like, technically everything that's ever happened with the Legends is technically your fault for putting the whole team together. But at the same time, I guess it's like, he also helped start the Time Bureau, who's a more organized replacement for the Time Masters, because the Legends were just a temporary, they're like a Band-Aid on a gaping wound, essentially, I guess is like, an antidote to kind of compare it to. I don't know. Because in all honesty too, I guess because of the circumstances around why he created the Legends, because he picked them all from people who wouldn't be missed in history. So I guess that kind of makes it slightly okay. Like, any big damage they've ever done, it's been outside of his control. So I guess that's one way of looking at it. So. And I just love it. The episode just cuts to 6 months later, and it's just like everyone's got normal jobs. Sarah working in a retail job at a store and fantasizing about killing her boss because he's that much of an asshole. Rory apparently finally found his way to Aruba. Nate trying to be a superhero in Central City, but kind of getting shown up by Wally and be like, Wally, dude, what did I tell you, man? Save me some of the bad guys, It's like, oh yeah, my bad, dude, my bad. And it's like, Yeah, which sadly turns out him and Amaya broke up because Amaya went back to 1942 because apparently Rip's the one that convinced her, but in actuality, Rip's like, no, she made the decision herself. Maybe it's a combination of the two. Like, the fact of the matter is, Nate kind of keeps saying, like, no, we didn't break up or anything like that. So it's like, maybe they did, and maybe they had a falling out, maybe certain things, like, because especially the way season 2 ended, it was like, no, I'm going to be here, you know, I'm going to stick around. So it's like, the fact is that she's not around anymore kind of begs that question. I guess she felt like because, like, her great purpose of being on this adventure, you know, having fun, time traveling and everything, now that it was gone, maybe there's no reason to stick around anymore. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that. Maybe it was like just relationship issues or things just not gelling well, because she also had to go back because it's like, well, let's not forget isn't her granddaughter, or is it like her great granddaughter? It's her granddaughter, the current Vixen, you know. Like, I'm sure that will mess with her whole time situation, which I still go back to saying, like, I believe I believe that Nate's going to end up being her dad. And maybe Nate never found out about it until now, so he pops up in current, modern day Vixen's life and be like, yo, I'm your dad. It's like, where you been? Wait, how can you be my dad? You're like my age. Well, time travel, you know, having to break all that down. So maybe that's the direction they'll go. That was kind of always my thought last season, but we'll see where they go. It seems like very interesting when it comes to Amaya's character too, because it's like when we saw her again, like she's protecting the village in 1942, but she seemed a lot more vicious because you actually heard like one of her animals like killing someone. Which is interesting that her power works like that, because now I'm sitting here thinking about it, didn't cross my mind too much. It's like her powers didn't work like that before. Like, she summoned the strength upon herself, but it's like, no, she actually summoned the animals, and then they attacked all on her own. Like, she like manifested them, not just them as like manifested them and gave her power. They represent like her power, you know. It wasn't like that. So that was just kind of interesting. So maybe I'm not remembering correctly from season 2, but I don't remember her ever really doing that. Like, her like projections kind of like acting on her own like that. They were kind of, I was supposed to be like a physical representation of her drawing it, like, oh, the power of a gorilla or a T-Rex, whatever the case may be, you know? So I don't know, you know, and also, like I said, you can hear like crunching, like one of the dudes got eaten. So it's like, you know, is she more vicious because of something else? Like, is something else like at play here? Like, with that whole regard, maybe not. We just got to have to wait and see. But going back to things, you also had Ray working at basically what is essentially a dating technology company. It's like, they're called Upswipe. They're like the opposite of Tinder. Instead of going left or right, swiping left or right, you swipe up or down. And it's like, Ray's like, oh, but this technology being tight. It's like, whoa, dude, you sold your company to a lady who ran it into the ground. To be fair, she ran it into the ground because the fact of the matter is she's off doing other important things too, like saving the city and stuff like that. And on occasions, let's not forget, she was there to help fight against aliens, so saving the world too. So let's not forget about that. Which I'm still curious about, because we have not gone back to that whole situation. Because remember, it's still in 2049 Star City. There was a whole situation of like, oh yeah, it said Smoke Industries. You know, the whole Queen consolidation situation. So I mean, well, it was still Palmer Tech at the time, and she took over. So I don't know whether that's still something they're going to like go back to, because that, I forgot, like, they have not touched that storyline about like the business side of things in a long time. Like, I guess now that Oliver's mayor, they left that behind. Maybe that's something we'll see kind of going forward in season 6. I don't know. It's just, that was not there at all in season 5 to my recollection. I think, was season 4 the last time we saw it? Or was it season 3? Might have been 3 or 4. I want to say it was 4. But nevertheless, everyone's trying to pretend like they're A-okay with their lives, but in all honesty, they're bored, they're miserable, because it's like, oh man, we were superheroes kicking ass in time, fixing the timeline and everything. You even have Jax missing it to the point he's like, I'm dropping out of college. Stein's kind of okay with life because Lily's pregnant, and it's like, oh, my grandchild's on the way, which is interesting because the fact of the matter is, I guess Lily is so intertwined with everything that the Time Bureau couldn't fix her. Like, I guess she's such like, either Rip himself is like, let's just leave that anomaly alone, or not, because it's just so interesting that never came about, anything came about of that. Like, soon-to-be husband is how Stein was putting him. It was like, the fact is we haven't met him is kind of interesting. I don't know, maybe it's just a situation like, oh, you're not going to meet him. It's not that he's not important, or the fact of the matter is you're just waiting to reveal, like, actually he's super important. We'll just kind of have to wait and see on that front, but I love that this episode does so much good stuff, because basically this entire episode is like, let's shit on the legends That's literally all this episode was. It's like, let's remind Legends of how terrible they are. They're the worst. I feel like, yeah, I've always used the term misfits when it came to the Legends, but I feel like this episode is like, the Legends are the worst. You guys are terrible. You're a bunch of idiots. And I feel like they even played, I feel like Sarah's never kind of been the idiot of the group, but even moments of being like, making even decisions Sarah made was like, okay, was sound at the time. Like, there's that time, like, during the whole, moon, mission they were on and everything, and like there's a simulator being run in the Wayfinder, because that's what the Wayfinder is basically reduced to now, and it's like a lady's like, okay, we're going to do that, basically running through Sarah's plant, and like everyone in the group looking at each other like, yeah, and then the girl leading the team is like, oh my god, only an idiot would think like that, and you see Sarah's smile going like, I love it. It's just all about tearing the Legends down, reminding them how stupid they are, even to the point, what's the main agent lady that we see more often, taking Palmer down. He's like, we're the Legends. She's like, yeah, I know. We know who you losers are. It's like, dude, it's like, tear them down. And it was so good. Because like, I feel like it's so good because I feel like previous seasons, yes, they messed up and stuff like that, but I feel like they were never like bumbling idiots. I feel like this premiere is just like, yeah, in actuality, we actually are bumbling idiots. And when you think about it, it's so good. It's like, the bumbling idiot the group is supposed to be Rory, and it's like, well, it's kind of everyone in this group, and it's so good. Tracking down Julius Caesar, because it's like, yo, we do this, we get in the time Bureau's good graces, we can get back to doing what we're doing, because we're bored out of our minds going back to our respective situations, which I kind of brought this up in the Flash episode. The fact is that she was back, Sarah's back in Star City. They never make reference of it, but the fact of the matter is she's back in Star City kind of makes me think her dad's still alive too. I mean, once again, they've designed it in a way probably like not to spoil anything. It's like certain things here and there mentioning characters, I'm sure it's fine. It's like, well, you probably already had your thoughts about that person not being dead. So, but it's still a situation like who survived the whole Lian Yu exploding situation. Wow. It's just kind of interesting. Like, I feel like, so that kind of possibly alludes to the fact is that Sarah's dad made it off the island. We'll just kind of have to see on that front. I mean, truth be told, is playing into the whole bumbling idiots thing is the fact is they ended up letting Caesar get the book that Nate had of like, oh yeah, here. Like he accidentally, like the book accidentally ended up in Caesar's hand. He's like, oh, basically he knows what to look out for in the future and stuff like that. So basically he ends up conquering most of the world. And then Nate's like, it's not my fault. And she's like, oh, Nate's right. It's like, no, you're not right about it not being your fault. You're right about the other thing. And he's just like, because everyone's pretty much, Nate, it's your fault. It's not my fault. It's pretty much your fault, Nate. It was your fault for having that book around, having it opening and everything. So be the chainsaws, we're going to be the scalpels. And so Sarah goes over and proceeds to kick Caesar's ass pretty effortlessly, and they're like, all right, cool, job done, let's go back. And even Jack's being like, a little tiny line of Jack's being like, yeah, you handled that pretty quick. I could have handled it faster, him and Stein. So, because like I said, this episode did a good job of setting that up too, because it's like, outside of being Legends, what did they really have going on for them? Because it's probably like a little joke that I loved about the whole Sarah situation. It's like, yeah, you're just lucky I hired a lady like you who's, been presumed to be dead like twice. It's like, that is right. That'd be kind of hard to kind of readjust to society, because it's like you have to put in all this information like, okay, I died like twice, whatever, So that was it's just kind of a little tidbit, little side joke that I just thought was kind of interesting. But it just shows you just how much they don't like, kind of going back to like why Rip made them part of the team in the first place. They didn't matter to the time, and it's like, outside of being Legends, they don't really have anything going on in their respective lives. It's like, this is all they have. I mean, especially more so for Jax, because Jax is like, he loves working on a wave rider, he loves being a superhero and stuff like that, but he didn't want to be on, he knew he couldn't do it if Stein wasn't going to stay, because it's not fair to pull Stein away from his life, even though everything is good for Stein. Like, Stein's the only one that kind of walked away very positively about returning to normal life, which even he's like, well, the fact of the matter is, we'll stay, Jax. He's like, what are you talking about? What about your life? It's like, well, I can get back to him anytime, which the group pointed out. I think it was Ray specifically. It's like, well, last time you said that, you came back with a daughter, so... But also, because Stein puts it in an interesting way, he's like, well, I did kind of trick you into getting in getting onto the ship. Not necessarily. Well, he was like, I manipulated essentially. I mean, let's not forget he drugged Jax to get him on the ship, and so it's like I'm the reason you're on this crazy adventure, and how can I take that away from you when I'm the one that put you in a situation in the first place? So it's like, oh, I'll be back before Lily gives birth and everything. So, but I mean, this is also an episode too because it's like Sarah still has those moments from time to time where she doubts herself. I mean, in all honesty, like, I think, I mean, they kind of play the blame game for Sarah at the very beginning of the episode, being like, yeah, this is kind of all your fault. It was you who kind of did this. It's like, no, we destroyed time. It's like, no, you're the one that destroyed time because you broke the rule and came back to time. It was your idea for our other future selves to come back to meet our past selves, so you kind of cause this calamity and stuff like that, which is still super depressing. We actually break it down and think about it too much about, like, the fact is that the legends that we technically knew don't exist anymore because the ones that were involved in the whole Legion of Doom situation, it's actually super sad to think about because each one of them died, but technically they don't exist anymore, which is even sadder. I kind of went into it obviously when I was talking about the season 2 finale, but obviously, nevertheless, going into this, Sarah's still doubting herself as a captain, I'm sure, for that particular instance, but also, like, the fact is that, it's like, she's like, she wants to stay on the Time Bureau's good side because it's like, if they mess things up too badly, she'll end up losing everything. But it took talking to Julius Caesar to be like, no, like, the fact of the matter is that all you're going to wager on this? It's like, it's kind of an all or nothing. It might not be easy, but essentially, what he was saying, like, basically, it took me conquering this place and this place. I lost a lot to get to this point of winning at this place, but it ultimately led to me winning, which he was also like, yeah, I could do so much if I had an Amazonian queen like you. And then, like, and you have, like, Sarah being like, ruling the place would kind of be interesting, but she's like, I can pretty much do that by myself, which she pretty much can because Sarah's pretty much a one woman army herself, so it's also kind of interesting too because certain aspects kind of popped in this episode, like, for example, like the whole Julius Caesar thing. Why, even though he was such a blip in the whole grand scheme of, like, things kind of being a little wonky, the fact of the matter is that the Bureau didn't recognize that he had popped up. Makes me kind of think, like, maybe someone did that on purpose. Partly my brain was thinking, like, was it Rip? Was Rip's, like, subtly doing all this stuff, so acting like he was against the legends when in actuality he wants them back in action because of whatever. I'm curious to find out, like, what happened in that 5 years of him making the Time Bureau and stuff like that. But because it seems like this is all about the main antagonist of this season, and it's someone known as Mortis, who apparently came about because of what they did. I guess what we'll find out, I would assume, is like Mortis is like some powerful being that was sealed away in almost like a time vault type of situation. But the moment time started unraveling, this person came about. It's kind of interesting because this is almost like season 3 and of The Flash and season 5 of Arrow, where it's like having to face your own consequences. It seems like they basically created their own main antagonist this season. But in regard, it might not be something like created. It's like this enemy already existed. They were just sealed away. But even Rip's like, yeah, we're going to need the legends. They might be a little crude, but ultimately they'll do what they do best. And it's like, what's that? Beat a chainsaw. So that was kind of interesting, which makes me wonder, like, is there a part of Rip? Because Rip seemed a little douchey this episode, turning down the legends and stuff like that. But which, once again, the legends kind of screwed things up. So it's like, yeah, there's a part of your side that's like, yes, I get it, Rip. But F you, man. Let the legends do their thing. It's like, no, don't disband this team of awesomeness. Which is like, I'm actually, like, going back to, I'm so surprised to actually see Rip at all. I was like, I mean, every time you think you're done with Rip pops back up. It's like, I'm actually still here. Which is, I'm always going to be happy to see Arthur Duvall. So I'm fine with that. Is it Duvall? Is that his last name? I think it is. I feel like I'm getting it wrong. I'm pretty sure that's, the right name. I feel like such a piece of crap. Season when Gideon kind of had like a human body, not it was all inside of Rip's head and everything. But, like, they made out and everything. I'm surprised still nothing else has come back up from that. I'd like to see more, like, see if anything will come about from that. That agent that is working with the Time Bureau that kind of is like, I love her being like, she's like, oh my God, I've seen you guys firsthand. And it's like, you guys really are even worse than I heard. I love the fact of the matter is she's not just all talk. She actually back it up because her and Sarah are teaming up. I'm like, yo, this is sick. Especially that moment she had her chains and she swung Sarah around. Sarah was like running on those shields. I was like, dude, that's some sick shit, dude. That's so awesome. Oh God, I love it. It's like, oh yeah, also like, how are you going to take down Caesar? Because Caesar has a whole legion. It's like, well, we know something about taking down legions. It's like, damn straight. I'm like, I love it. In actuality, it's so interesting to think about just how fragmented that is. Thinking about it too much, it's like, I mean, because the only one that's okay from the Legion of Doom is Malcolm Merlin, which, to be fair, we don't know what his situation is. It's actually, in actuality, it'd actually be kind of interesting if he did end up like dying, and that we end up finding out he did die in Era, which I said it then, and I'm gonna say now, I still don't think he's dead. Just in the grand scheme of things, because that would mean he's currently the only living member. I mean, technically with time travel and everything, but technically, like present day time and everything, he's the only living member of the Legion of Doom. So, I mean, technically Rip, because Rip was kind of a pawn and everything too. Well, technicalities. Like I said, this show immediately from the beginning has already hit us off with just a fantastic episode, because this episode wasn't just about some like drama or nothing like that. It's like, no, this episode was fun. And I think that's what this show does best of all amongst all the shows. It's like, it has its drama moments, but obviously like this show is probably, I think this is the show that has like the most fun. Like every other show has its fun, but I feel like this is like the more like, yo, it's time travel fun. So I don't know, I feel like, cause that's something that's only unique to this show specifically. I mean, that's just how I feel about it. So, like I said, a fantastic season premiere. I'm very interested to see where the story goes this season, to learn more about our said antagonist. I'm also curious to see what we cross paths with any other heroes this season. That's kind of been my mindset too, because obviously like, the Justice Society of America is like, we met them last season. So, because I'm curious to know if they ever have any intentions of ever bringing the Hulks back, because there's still that whole situation about why Vandal Savage was got in a position that he was, because preparing Earth for like an invasion that was basically connected to the Hulks in a sense, because it's like, their backstory being like, one is like reincarnation and another one being that they're aliens in certain storylines do. Nevertheless, like, I don't know if that's something they'll ever go back to. Maybe that's something, I mean, this is like, it'll be something we'll be seeing this season, but it was just something I'm curious, will they ever go back to that, or just the Hulk story is done? Like I said, what other heroes might they have in store for us this season? I'm very interested to see what goes down, especially in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.